I always wanted to be an actor. Even when I was a kid, when I was 7 years old, I was always trying to get in talent competitions, but I never got anywhere. And when I was older, I got a band together called Margox and the Zinc, and it was a punk band. We played Eric's, and I invented this name, Margox, but it was a creative mistake. I used to love Margot Hemingway, who was a gorgeous model, an American model, and she was granddaughter of Ernest Hemingway. And so I was looking in the Vogue, and there's this gorgeous picture, and I said to our Frank, I said, "Isn't Margox Hemingway gorgeous?" He said, "She's gorgeous." He said, "But you're a crack cow." He said, "You don't pronounce the X." Well, in punk days, X was a powerful letter of the alphabet. It wasn't, you know, all the way back there. You could pull it right forward. And I put it to my name, Margox. So I burst into television first. I was a TV presenter. Tony Wilson, the late great Tony Wilson, Lord have mercy on him, he brought me into television because he'd seen me perform with my punk band at Eric's. Andrew Schofield played with me, you know, the actor Andrew Schofield, he was in the band. And he spotted me, Tony, and brought me into television. So when I went to Granada, they trained me as a TV presenter. But it was all a little bit crazy, you know, because one week I'd be sawn in half by Paul Daniels, Black and Decker and a Slab. And the next week I'd be interviewing Demis Roussos, and I billed him as the man who looked like he'd swallowed a couch. Now, then I met Jamie Reid, and we run away together to Paris. And while I was there with Jamie Reid, I brought out a record in French called Beauty and the Thief. And our Frank, he was writing me letters saying, "Margie, your name's Margi Clarke, not Petula Clarke, get home." And he started to write a letter to Brezhnev. I'd had an early idea for a letter to Brezhnev. I was best mates with Caroline Duffy, who's now the poet laureate. And she was going out with Adrian Henry, who was one of the top poets in Liverpool. And he had a fabulous house in Mount Street. And I went there one wet Wednesday afternoon, and Caroline got out the claret, Adrian's claret. In them times, this would have been 1978, there was a lot of terrible propaganda against Russia, and people were really scared. They thought they were going to get nuked. And I remember watching Granada reports, and there's a story about this man who's been made redundant. And with his redundancy money, he builds a nuclear fallout shelter in the garden. People are funny, aren't they? So one afternoon, I was watching this black and white American movie, and it was with Baby Jane Hudson. And there's a song in it, and it goes, "I'm sending a letter to Daddy. His address is heaven above. Sending a letter to Daddy." So I converted that to, "I'm sending a letter to Brezhnev. Address is Russia with love. Sending a letter to Brezhnev. Don't want to be blew up. Yeah, I don't want to be blew up." So that's all I'd done with it. And I'm good at getting ideas. I'm Geminian. I work well with receiving messages, information up in the air, but I've got no productive power at all. So my job is to get the ideas, but I can't turn them into substance. My brother can. He's got productive power, and he was able to take that title, because that's all he took of it, was the title. And our Frank, you know, only had two brothers, and one of them passed away, so our Frank was really precious to us all. And he was brought up surrounded by women. And my dad, of course, but all of his sisters, you know, all around him. And he's got a fantastic ear. He can really hear what people are saying, and he retains it. And Brezhnev, I absolutely adored all that dialogue in it. And I can hear my brother every time I hear other people saying the lines. It's our Frank that comes to mind to me. He wrote a letter to Brezhnev, and he wrote it really, really fast. And then he tried to get some money to make a letter to Brezhnev, and it was all no room at the inn. no room at the inn. No one wanted to know, because at that point in time, the propaganda was, like today, was very fierce against Russia. And so no one wanted to really get involved. Phil Redmond read his script, but he said, I want you to write for Brookside. So he'd written the letter to Brezhnev. It got him a part, a writer's role on Brookside, which was a brand new show, brand new Liverpool drama. So he had the script. He now had a few bob off Brookside. So we put it on at the Unity Theatre. Oh, and by the way, he got Alexander Pigg a job in Brookside. He recommended Alexander to Phil Redmond. So, you know, she was playing in that. And then Frank had enough money to stage a letter to Brezhnev. So we put it on at the Unity Theatre and in Liverpool. And in a way, it was great to stage it because it teaches you the economy of a script. You know what's working, you know what is causing problems, you know when the scenes are full of grace, you know. And so that really tightened up. He did rewrites from that. And then, amazingly, how Frank found the money for a letter to Brezhnev. It should be a film all of its own, or at least a book, and I hope he writes it one day. It's really funny and it's incredible.
Do you know what I'd do? I'd get a gorgeous photo of myself, lash it in an envelope, and I'd write a dead nice letter to that fella. Hey Vinny, what's his name?
Who?
The president of Russia.
Brezhnev, isn't it?
That's it, Brezhnev.
Anyway, he gets the money, but our Frank has written a piece about that, and I don't want to upstage what he's written for this project. And it's really dramatic, quite dramatic how he gets the money. And that day, me and Jamie Reid, who did all the artwork for the Sex Pistols and also did all the design artwork for the letter to Brezhnev and the very beautiful poster at the end. He was in a hairdresser's shop in Liverpool with me, and was standing in this hairdresser's shop, and Jamie had a long fringe at the time, and I just introduced him to the hairdresser, and the hairdresser, called Chris Sheard, great name for a hairdresser, picked up Jamie's fringe, chopped it off and threw it out the window, right? Cut to, our Frank comes running in the hairdressers and he goes, that classic old Hollywood line, I'm gonna make you a star. So what do you mean? He raised £50,000 to make a letter to Brezhnev, and it changed all our lives dramatically. And I had a sense that it was going to be really successful. I was so nervous when we first started. I was that nervous. The first day of filming, I turned up with a bloodshot eye. And Chris said to me, it suits the character. He said, she's just come out of a big shift. You know, she's just done 10 hours in the chicken factory. So no wonder she's got a bloodshot eye. But I had to sit next to Elaine, you know, who's dolled up, who's 11 years younger than me, in the pub, in the Peacock. I've got the twat hat on, I've got the overalls, the white wellies, the blood-stained, and I thought, oh, I look terrible, look terrible.
Hi, Teresa. Hi, Elaine. Hi, Tracy.
And I've got no makeup on, and I'm crying to our Frank, and I'm saying, oh, Frank, please, just a little bit of lippy. And he's going, no, you'd have a transformation scene. He said, you'd end up gorgeous, don't worry about it. And I couldn't help myself, we were on set, and I noticed an extra wearing red lipstick. So I run over to the extra and I went, and then put it on my lips and crisping off. He banned makeup bags on the set so that I couldn't go near any makeup whatsoever. And that was a brave thing in a sense, as an actor to play, because no actors, no female actresses were quite into, you know, taking it all apart like that and just being very plain. But it is a great transformation scene. When I come out and you see me drop a ciggy on the floor and I put the ciggy out and the camera travels up my body and you see the gorgeous red dress and the blonde hair and it's all flicked out and no one knows it's me then. And I love that about it. It's a bit like Bette Davis, you know, in Now Voyager. Yeah, because she goes on as playing as a mop, doesn't she, and ends up all judged up at the end of the film. So it's got little overtones of Now Voyager in it. I'm not really interested so much in my performance in A Letter to Brezhnev. You get bored of watching yourself. I always watch Alexandra Pig and the mother, Mandy. The part of the mother in A Letter to Brezhnev was based on my real mother, Frances. And so I can hear, it brings my man back to life. But Alexandra Pig's performance, I love it because I like her winsomeness, you know, that she's sort of very, I like a predator touch that she got. She sort of goes after him a little bit. But I love her performance and that romance that they have. It's really powerful. You can actually see the characters falling in love, but they don't have a bit, you know. They're going to keep it straight. They're not going to have sex until they're married. Whereas my character, she's not 2 minutes diving into bed with Igor and giving him a good going over, as they say in the film. Oh, the relationship, the friendships that were forged on well, even before the letter to Brezhnev, our friendships were forged. We were all like that, and in each other's houses all the time. Chris Bernard, fabulous director, really, really good with actors, as well as the pictures, you know, understanding what's got to be there for the beauty of the photographs, but with actors, really incredible. Mine and Alexandra Pig's relationship on set as actors was really easy because we had that shorthand. We were mates. Alexandra was my babysitter. She used to mind our Lawrence when he was little. And she was only about 18, you know. And Chris Bernard, who was the director of the film, Chris Bernard, everyone who worked on it, we were all mates together. And we all shared our assets. And our assets weren't money. It was our particular talent that we all brought to the table. Me and Alexandra Pig, we laughed our way through it because we were such good mates in that taxi scene, you know, when we're going into town. And Chris Bernard gave us a real joint, a real spliff. method acting. Frank, he's really good at bringing people together and able to connect them one to the other. So lots of people in the film who were extras, who were featured extras in it, they were people I grew up with. Kathleen Johnson, she was my best mate. And in that scene where we meet the two Greeks and I go to the bar, well, Kathleen Jono, she comes up the bar with me, and because she didn't have an equity card, she couldn't speak. So I says to her, "Hiya, Kathleen." She goes, and she's wearing a fur coat in it. She kept the fur coat on for 20 years because she got recognised in the fur coat. So and she's just got a little tiny part in it. You know the scene where the bus stops at the beginning and it stops outside the nightclub, a little social club, and it stops there and about 90 people get off the bus. There's tons of people shoved on that bus. And when we were actually filming, the chief of police pulls our Frank and he said, "There's a notorious family here and you've got to watch out for your filming equipment." Frank said, "Oh, you're all right, officer, they're in the film." It's one of the signs of a classic film is that every role in it is brilliant. Every role in it is well played. And in A Letter to Brezhnev, every single part, even down to the girl in the chippy, you know, communist aggressors. All of the roles all shine. The guy who plays Sweaty Arse.
Go home with you?
Yeah, why not? No complaints the last time, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, that was before I found out you had a sweaty ass. Now go on, move it, before I cuff the face off you.
And he was brilliant in it. They're all little tiny roles. Lots of them hadn't acted to a great degree. They'd had some experience, but not as, you know, as much as me and Alexandra Pig had. And Peter Firth, you know, how did our Frank manage to get Peter Firth and Alfred Molina? Frank knew Peter Firth through Maya Sendall, a good mate of our Frank's, and he met Peter Firth. He hadn't met Alfred Molina, and he got in touch with Peter Firth and asked him would he be an actor in Lester Brezhnev. He'd just come off a movie which cost 14 million, right? We had £50,000, which was the cocaine budget on a Rambo movie. That was the cocaine budget for them. This was for us to make the entirety of the film. Now, Peter Firth, he said yeah. Very gracious of him to have said yeah, you know, really charitable, because he thought we were just going to be like students with a little Super 8 running around town. He didn't think that it was going to be, you know, a feature film, a proper feature film. And Alfred Molina, I'd never met him before. And he used to entertain me on the set because he'd sing, "Somewhere over the budget." He guided me well in it, you know. If you just see the way he turns me round, you know, in that doorway scene where we're looking up at the stars and I'm telling him a pack of lies, I'm a telephonist, me, you know.
I get to answer the phone and that. Good morning, Davis and Timmins, can I help you?
Not in chicken stuffer. He guided me well. He made sure that I was in the key light because they were that experienced with film. And who else was there? That was Neil Cunningham. Neil Cunningham, brilliant London actor. He'd worked extensively with Ken Campbell. He was in The Warp, Illuminatus and The Immortalists. So he was a superb actor. He demanded the part of our Frank. He was the only one who did.
I think it's very important that I make one or two things clear to you and try to discuss this matter with you without becoming emotional.
He said, that part belongs to me. Willie Russell wanted the part. But no, Frank made sure that Neil Cunningham got it. And he plays a blinder in it. You know, he plays it really well because that ploy that he's employing there is, he's suggesting in that scene, the Foreign Office scene, he's suggesting that Peter's married. Well, that could be a lie, because nobody went from the West to Russia, yeah? The Iron Curtain, so to speak, was to keep them in, not us out, you know? And to make that departure, the establishment, they were saying, oh, what about the food shortages? And Alexandra Pig, Elaine, quite rightly turned around and says, oh, do you want to see food shortages? Oh, I'll show you our back kitchen if you want to see food shortages. There's plenty of food shortages around here. There's political lines in there. They're quite subtle. And it is a political film, but it didn't push the politics. It's Romeo and Juliet, love across the divide. I think one of the reasons why Lester to Brezhnev was so successfully collaborative was because we come from big families. So we had 10 in our family. So we used to fight, shout, batter one another, borrow money off each other, wear each other's clothes. It was loving and really loud and all that. So we knew how to get on with one another. And if people had a hissy fit, it wouldn't bother me. Whereas some performers, if they break a fingernail or they have a ladder in the tights, they're crying their eyes out. Well, that's no good. You've got to be able to hack it. So everyone on a Lester Brezhnev, from the editor, you know, Frank knew, or I knew, or Alexander, or Chris Bernard knew. There's one very special person I want to mention from Lester to Brezhnev, and he's an unsung hero in a way, and that was the lighting cameraman, Bruce McGowan, and it's lit brilliantly. Liverpool shines. It really brings out that massive scope of the city, you know. The library buildings look like Gotham, and Bruce was really particular about that. He passed away about 10 years ago, really miss him. Brilliant cameraman, and that was his massive moment. The premiere up in Kirby, oh, they still talk about it today. It was, the whole town turned up for the premiere, and they wanted to have the Palace Pictures and Channel 4, they wanted the premiere in London. Wine and cheese. Frank said no. No, he said, it's going to be ale, whiskey, and any shots anyone wants. He said, we're not having wine and cheese. So they were forced to come up to Kirby. It was the Golden Eagle, a little battered hotel at a house, all kinds of celebs that come up from London and thereabouts. And I thought that was great of our Frank. And people were bunking through the windows at the Kirby Suite to get in to see it, you know. And that was my proudest moment of it, because I was with all the people I'd grown up with, you know. And when each of our names come up on the credits, they all, we had a party afterwards in my mother's council house, and there was 700 people in my mother's council house. Chocker, round the block, in the garden. The do went on right through to the next morning. And so still celebrated, still talked about. You know, it's incredible because we won an award. We won lots of awards for Lester Brezhnev. But we went to Cannes, to the Cannes Film Festival. And it was absolutely incredible. And who's sitting next to me watching a letter to Brezhnev? Mel Gibson. Love him. Love everything about him. Love to work with him. That's one of my big ambitions that I'd love to achieve, is to do something for Mel Gibson. But he's watching it with me. He's sat next to me. And me and Alexander Pig, we got carried out of the theatre, out of the cinema in Cannes, aloft. All the men carried us out. That's how excited everyone was by the movie. But I got an award off the Catholic Humanities Society, and there was this bishop giving me the award, and I said, oh, bless me, Father. I said, but there's 10 dozen swear words in the first 5 minutes. How come I've got the award? He said, because the film's about love. And I really appreciated that you know, we got some benediction there, you know, when we did the premiere in Kirby. 2 Russians turned up. They'd sent them from the Russian Foreign Office. And my mother was going, I'm sure they're Russian spies, you know. I said, Mother, it wouldn't be that obvious. And they gave me an award. And mine was made out of bottle tops. And Alexandra Pig's was made out of cigarette cartons. And I don't know what happened to mine. I don't know whether she still got hers, though. But they were the awards that we got off the Russians. And I like that touch, because it was like when Russia sends a rocket up to space, it's very functional. Whereas when America sent a rocket up to space, it had a Christmas tree on it. You know, so their approach to things was a bit different to us. First of all, when we were getting the music together, I'd written it as a song. And I teamed up with Alan Gill. Now, Alan Gill, he used to be with Teardrop Explodes, and he wrote the hits. He wrote Reward. Absolutely very special musician, very gifted, but really shy, you know. Doesn't really want to know the social life of anything. And I went over to Birkenhead, because he's a Birkenhead, the ball, and started work with Alan. And so we recorded the song together, This Is a Letter to Brezhnev. And from that, Alan then wrote the score from that track. And after he'd written the score, that was then turned over to the Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra, and they recorded it on all of their instruments. So it's incredible, the soundtrack on Lester Brezhnev is not computerised. And then Palace Pictures had a brand new idea, which is now in every film, whereby they brought in other artists to do the soundtrack. So, you know, lots of other bands were brought in. That was the first time that had ever happened in a film. So you had Bronski Beat, who got their hit from it, you know, Beat Boy, Beat Boy. In Liverpool, not so much these days, but in them days, the money was in your mouth. That was your coinage. It wasn't in your pocket. But everyone was in the same boat. So it was how witty you were. It was if you could make up new words and new expressions. That's what got you the pint. That's what got you the ale in. You know, it was the fact. My dad used to say, you know, he had loads of daughters, and we'd be getting ready to go out of a night, all fighting for the mirror, you know, putting the mascara on, getting your hair done. And at the end of it, my dad would turn around and say, don't forget now, girls, good company don't come cheap. It should have been Liverpool's motto. It used to be Cockney that promoted working class language. Now, then it became Scouse that promoted working class language. And that's where it's most rich, where the language is rich. Posh people don't invent new words. What are you like? Well, what are you like from a letter to Brezhnev? With my sister Angela. Our Angela, she plays a blinder in it, Josie. She plays Alexandra Pig's sister. She doesn't play my sister, she plays her sister. And in that scene where I'm in the chicken factory and she's waiting for me to come out and I've robbed all the chicken pieces, you know, and I'm going, yeah, 2 legs, 3 wings, tell your mother I couldn't get the full bird. And she goes, oh, what do you like? Well, that expression, what do you like, ended up as a Nana Cherry record. All the lines from a letter to Brezhnev are really common now. Things like lippy, lecky, they're common. Everyone says it. Liverpool's nightlife, even then, was special. It was really friendly. There was tons of people out. The town was always packed. And the State nightclub, it had been, they used to have tea dances there in the 20s. And the decor inside was absolutely amazing. It was all mother-of-pearl walls, you know. And they had laser lights put in, and it was something else. It was excellent. And it had like a 70s dance floor, you know, those the glass ones that are lit up. And so there we were in there. And I had that transformation scene to come. And you see us bursting through the doors. And one of the bouncers who's on the doors, he goes, oh, looking custy tonight, girls. Custy in Scouse means good. But he's making a little joke against me because I've got the chicken stuffers uniform on. So, mind sweeping, we call it. When I go into the State, and the first thing I do is I mind sweep a bottle of wine. And it's interesting because a good thief never steals standing still. They do it on the move. And that was good, the way, you know, that played was just in the gesture. And that's what used to happen. If you had no money, you'd have to go mine sweeping to get yourself a bevy. Seeing the effect the movie had on the world, it introduced Russia to the world stage. It introduced Gorbachev to the world stage. You know, because Russia, it took them 70 years to get rid of communism. Long time. So we sensed that. That's what Letter to Brezhnev is about, that change of them leaving communist Soviet Russia behind and becoming the Russia that we know today. So we picked up, we sensed that. And, you know, so that effect that the movie had, how it influenced other people, it put a stop to the Rambo movies. They couldn't murder any more Russians. The impact A Letter to Brezhnev had on my life, even in the film itself, we had no money while we were making it. We were on no expenses. We just had, my mother was making butties for us and cups of teas. There was no catering. So right through the film, until the last week of filming, we got money. And right through the film, I'm really skinny until the last week. And at the airport, I put weight on because we ate. So it changed my life. It changed it actually physically in the film. We're really thin until we get paid. The last week of the film when we got paid. So we've all put weight on because we've been paid and we've all ate properly. So yeah, it had a big effect. And then the effect on having a career, you know, we were plausible, we were viable. We weren't viable before. No one could hear our voices. We were all the way up there in the pool. And now it had gone international and never had money before. I mean, I was hopeless with it. Absolutely hopeless. You know, just run out of my hands. I made all the money for everyone else. I didn't particularly do it for myself, but not complaining, because I was privileged to tell the story. If I'd never done a letter to Brezhnev, I'd have done what my mum did. My mum had 10 children, and that's what I should have done, really. But that wasn't meant to be. But it had a massive effect. One of the things that it did was we could buy clothes, and all of my clothes used to come out of second-hand shops, which was great because you could put a look together, you know, the vintage stuff. Well, this is way back then. And but now, we could buy designer wear. And I goes and buys all this designer wear. We went to Madonna di Campiglio for an award ceremony. They were giving us a big award in Italy. And I had this Azzadini Elia coat. It was fantastic. It cost me £800, which is about £1,500 now. And anyway, the coat was Paul Yates had one the same. Paul Yates. She had exactly the same coat. And I gets on the plane, goes to Italy, looked $1 million, but I had an Albacete suitcase that looked terrible. It looked a show, you know, it was really minty. Everything else looked like a star. But the suitcase looked like the Beverly Hillbillies. And I gets on the train coming back from London to Liverpool, and doesn't my suitcase get robbed? And all the designer wears in it. And my mother went mad. She said, I told you, she said, you should just shop at TJ Uses. So I lost all the designer wear, and I never bought it with the same keenness after that. But yeah, it had a massive effect on our lives, still to this day. It opened up our world. It gave us an opportunity to work with directors from other countries, you know. That was great to be given that opportunity to work with Aki Kaurismäki. Brilliant, you know, that came for us. But I do think that letter to Brezhnev was, we told the time to the world. It was like being a big clock. Someone has to say it, you know. Art gets there before science. You know, the artist will get there first. Science will prove, will get it set square out and prove what the artist knows. So it had that power attached to it.